This is number 10 on Lacerna's review for the Unit 5 test. They ask us for the value of x in the triangle below. And since they've got x's on both sides, that tells us that this is an isosceles right triangle, which means that these two angles are congruent, which means it's following our 45, 45, 90 pattern, which I've drawn here. Now this is the original 45, 45, 90 pattern. And if you watch the other videos, there were some easy little tricks to get those side lengths. You could just follow those patterns. It was just quick multiplication and division. This one's not so quite straightforward because the 24 on the hypotenuse is matching up with square root 2 on the hypotenuse from the original. Now, since the angles are the same, what we can actually do is set up one of these equations because we have similar triangles. So if I start with 24, I'm going to match that up with one part of this, which again is the hypotenuse, square root 2. And then if I go with x, x has to match up with one leg of this triangle, which is the 1. Then I'm going to take, I could actually cross multiply, but since I've already got x over 1, that's just the same thing as x. So now I'm going to take the 24 over the square root 2. That is my actual answer, but now I have to simplify it. To simplify it, I want to get rid of this square root 2 on the bottom. I have to rationalize the denominator. To do that, I have to multiply both top and bottom by that same square root 2 over square root 2. When I multiply, I get 24 times square root 2 on top, which is 24 square root 2. On the bottom, it becomes square root 2 times square root 2, which is the square root of 4, which works out nicely because the square root of 4 is 2. When I divide, I get 2 into 24 is 12 times the square root 2, and there is my answer. So it takes definitely a lot more work for this one than it does for the other patterns. This is the harder version of a special right triangle solution. Now, if you had a calculator, which you will on the test, the nice thing is on the test, you might have answers on the test such as, I'm going to give 4 choices really quickly here, 12 square root 3, 12 square root 2, 1, and 24. You could do sine, cosine, tangent. So let's say if you weren't familiar with this, if you got stuck, you just didn't remember how to do this. If you start with sine of 45, the sine of this angle is the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse 24. So when you put that over 1, it becomes 24 sine 45. Now if I go to my trusty calculator, turn it on, and I plug in 24 sine 45, I hit equals, I get that decimal. So that is a correct answer, 16.97. Now if I would compare that decimal here, obviously none of these are decimals. And this is just if it were multiple choice. So let's say if I take that multiple choice, 12 square root 3, I'm going to put 12 square root 3 in there. Not the same decimals, so that's not it. 12 square root 2. And it's just kind of plugging it in and checking. It's like guessing and checking. Now I've got the decimals matching, and I've used my calculator to figure out without having to go through all this. So if you don't have a calculator, you're going to have to do this stuff. If you do have a calculator and you're clever about it, you can use sine, cosine, tangent to check those answers to try to get the correct one, which again, here the correct answer is 12 times the square root of 2.